gold, diamonds, platinum, and so much more. South Africa's mineral wealth is legendary, and our mining industry is a world leader that employs hundreds of thousands of people. But unless the sector keeps innovating and modernizing, there's a very real danger it will be left in the dust, with huge implications for our country. Smart mining is the future, and the foundation of smart mining is connectivity. That's where MTN Business comes in, enabling digital transformation by leveraging the power of 5G. MTN Business is already working with several mining groups to understand how to enhance networks, operations, and security using the best 5G in the country. This will improve functions such as ore screening, mining efficiency, equipment and transmission automation, and underground safety. 5G allows for artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data analytics, and the Internet of Things, all key to smart mining. When it comes to health and safety, for example, with MTN 5G and IoT solutions, smart mines can get real-time view of all their crucial data. Groundwater levels, seismic activity, displacement, temperature, smoke, gas leakages, emissions, and the location of miners and equipment. This data is collected remotely and centrally managed to ensure that operations, maintenance, efficiency, and safety are top of mind. MTN Business is excited to be playing a leading role in this space and has invested billions to create a truly world-class network that can promote the growth and sustainability of its enterprise customers. MTN has the best network for next-generation 5G connectivity, offering cutting-edge, faster, and more seamless connectivity within the mining industry. With smarter apps, improved data storage, faster processing, and wider information distribution, the future has arrived. Only one question remains: do you have the right connectivity partner in place, or are you going to be left behind? MTN Business. Business done better.
Good morning and welcome. The Internet of Things, IoT, and 5G have revolutionized the mining industry, as it has just about every industry in the world and will continue to do so, and is providing integrated business solutions to deliver long-term strategic benefits, improvements in safety and productivity, and extensive benefits to the environment, and of course, the bottom line. This is the second installation in a series of industry webinars to explore the impact of IoT, 5G, digitization, and of course 4IR, the fourth industrial revolution, solutions in the mining and other sectors. Today, you're going to have the opportunity to engage with some of South Africa's leading mining and technology experts as we discuss the future of digital mining and intelligent IoT solutions. So a very warm welcome to all of you joining us online for this MTN Business Mining IoT webinar. My name is Ryan Hogarth, and I'm going to be your program director over the next couple of hours as we explore this topic. We have some excellent discussions. We've got 4 speakers. We've got a panel, all centered around the role that technology plays in mining. And in these conversations, we're going to be looking at connectivity, 5G, and IoT, the Internet of Things in particular. I'd like to invite all of you to get involved, be part of the discussion by posting your thoughts, your comments, and your questions in the chats. And when we have the panel discussion, if you've got questions for the panel, be sure to post your questions there. If you have any technical issues, we've got people on standby to assist, so please call us on 011 467 3341. That's 011 467 3341, and one of our staff will be able to assist you right away. And now we get into the day. And as we get into the meat of the program, I'd first like to welcome, to give us the formal welcome, Kolofelo Makakani, the head of marketing at MTN Business, to give us all an MTN yellow welcome.
And a bright yellow welcome, as you say there, Ryan. You are converted. I think you are now part of the yellow family. And we thank you for always rising to the occasion when we invite you to help us champion this series of webinars. And with that, it's a bright yellow welcome to everybody on the webinar. I do understand that we do have a good number of attendees all doing it on an online platform, and we welcome you all. I think most important is that we are acknowledging that people who have chosen to participate in this webinar represent the mining industry in some shape or form. So we regard you as the captains of the industry, we regard you as the shapeshifters, and we regard you as the people who are going to help us drive digital transformation, particularly so as we move into 4IR, as we introduce new technologies like 5G, and as we try to make a better way of economic transformation through digital transformation. So we thank you for joining us for this session. As Ryan alluded to earlier, this is part of a series of webinars that we are running. We come from an era where those who have been following MTN Business in this IoT space, we used to run just one webinar or one conference in a year, where we would include all industry players at the same time. And we have everybody from mining, agriculture, retail, and it was just centered around IoT. But what we got as feedback was that there is a need to separate this and have a verticalized approach where each industry can then delve deeper into what drives their industry. The industry can delve deeper into the insights that are coming out of their industry without the heavy content that is shared across verticals. And this is why we're doing this series of webinars. We are doing it so that we focus one industry at a time, we deep dive into it. We have subject matter experts who will come in and talk about that particular industry. And at the end of the day, we hope that we will impart some knowledge to you with regards to what total industry is working on to drive this digital transformation. But even if it doesn't happen like that, we're also looking forward to hearing from you in terms of what drives digital transformation in your world and what you'd like to see coming out of network operators and what you'd like to see coming out of the industry at large. So it's a two-way street. We will share our insights, but we also depend on you to give your insights as to what you'd like to see. And with that, I hope that the next 2 hours are going to be insightful to you, and that by the end of the series, you are going to be more informed and more equipped to drive digital transformation in your respective areas. But one thing that I want to touch on is essentially why MTN is doing these webinars. And I think it's very important for me to touch on that, because one of the things that we're trying to do is to create a platform for sharing of information. We're creating a platform where from the presentations you're going to see, from the chat box that Ryan is going to guide you on, and from everything else that's going to be discussed, we are sharing information. This is not necessarily a platform where we are expecting you to buy or to particularly engage in anything that leads to a transaction. The important thing is that we are sharing information, we are creating a safe space for peer-to-peer learning, and we're also getting your inputs on what drives digital transformation. And those are the main 3 reasons why we are doing this. At the end of it all, the digital transformation that you want as a country can only materialize when we share ideas, can only materialize when we have in forums like this that allow people to share their knowledge. And at the end of the day, we will go to the lab and develop solutions that are meaningful to you based on the insights that we get from you. But as MTN, you would know that we pride ourselves in being a trusted enabler of digital transformation, and will continue to be that by doing such webinars, by sharing such information, because out of doing that, all we want to impart is that you can trust us for your digital transformation journeys. We may not have all the solutions in the truck or in the lab as it is today, but with your insights and with our drive of being a trusted enabler of digital transformation, we'll always listen to you. We'll always look for those solutions. We'll always co-create those solutions with you, so that at the end of the day, you don't walk this journey alone. You can rely on our experts. You can rely on our pillars of ICT, which my colleague Sudipto will talk about in a second, just showing you which areas of ICT we operate in. But at the end of it all is that we are opening the door for co-creation of solutions. We are inviting you to say anything that you want that is in this field of digital transformation. Keep us in the consideration stage. Talk to us about it. And I promise you that out of that conversation that you're going to be bringing forward to us, we will not let it go until we try to create a solution for you, co-create it with you, rely on our network of partners and service providers to ultimately be in a space that says, even though some things will be core to what MTN does, we will bring you a series of solutions that come with our partners who are working with us in developing these solutions. So we are not going to be forcing or trying to direct it only to what MTN does in terms of our connectivity pillars. But based on your needs, we will co-create a solution, we'll bring in a network of partners, and we'll do everything possible to take your business forward in terms of this digital transformation. And in closing, I just want to wish you all a very successful and insightful 2 hour of learning. We have put together a great lineup of speakers. We have put together a great lineup of panel discussion. And I hope that out of all that, you will find value in it. And you will then come back to us and try to double click and invite us to a session where we can deep dive in some of the solutions and the discussions that will be discussed today. With that, I give it back to you, Ryan, and I wish everybody a great, insightful 2 hours.
Kolo, thank you so very much for that. And there's a few things you highlight there that I think are really important. The idea of partnership and collaboration. As the world is revolutionizing toward IoT and the fourth industrial revolution, a number of lessons are learnt. And one is that we can't do it alone. Whoever you are, whatever you're doing, whatever business you're in, as an industry moves in this direction, it is very much a collaborative space, which requires partnerships, which I think Kolo touched on very nicely there. And also the word journey, which we hear a lot, the journey towards digitalization, and knowing that what's unique about this journey is that it's a journey without destination. We know where we want to go, but as we travel, we discover that there are better things to do, better destinations. And so the destination is the journey itself, which is another lesson we learn along the way. And as we go through the discussions today, it's going to become abundantly clear to note that in an IoT stack or any environment, that any piece of technology to be enabled, connectivity is the bedrock of it. It sits at the bottom of that. Any IoT operations require IoT. Just as your smart home, your smartphone, your smart fridge depend on connectivity to be smart, so do your mining operations. Perhaps, and most certainly, a lot more complex, but pretty much the same at its base. The mining sector in particular, though, has been lagging in IoT adoption and implementation due to poor connectivity in the current environment. MTN Business provides a network and ecosystem capable of automating processes and improving output in any organization like it's never been done before. So now to tell us a little bit more about the connectivity layer, we're going to welcome Sudipto Moitra, the General Manager of ICT at MTN Business. So Sudipto, over to you.
Yellow, and welcome everyone to this webinar. It's a very, very interesting day where we are talking about the mining industry, how do we create value, and talking about the connectivity. Ryan, thank you very much for that introduction. What I would like to cover today and share with everybody that's on the webinar, we just wanted to touch on, what are some of the challenges, which I think most of us are quite familiar. We hear about this digital transformation. So from our observation, from an MTN business perspective, what is that we are looking at? The smart mining, I think it all relates to the reduction of risk, optimization, and profits. But more importantly, I will try to deep dive and share with you what is the digital ecosystem, as we heard from Ryan and Kulu, in the partnership that we need to work. It's not just about the 5G, but it's about the private wireless ecosystem. So from a connectivity, there are different technologies that we can bring to bear. And then just to go into a little bit more details on what does the different architectures that kind of look like, which would then result, we believe, into building a shared value, which would be very relevant for the mining industry. So moving straight into it, I think, as we are all aware, across the country, across the different mines, across the different minerals that the mines are mining, across the different value chain, I think some of the key challenges that as a country, as a continent, globally that the industry is facing is around the secure network and the real-time data. The extreme conditions and the health and safety in which these operations are taking place, the transportations and the whole logistics around that and how to bring efficiencies in that, and the old and the new systems, into one operating environment. And the last one for me, which is, I think, very, very real, is the whole convergence of the operational technology with IT technology that is really a building block and probably a big enabler to solve some of the key challenges in the mining space. The digital transformation in mines broadly, if we look at what the different mines across the different sectors are looking at, as we mentioned, either is to kind of improve the shareholder benefits, but more importantly, it's to reducing the risk and optimizing, on the current operations that we have. Looking at, the convergence of OT and IT, as I mentioned, and the security, which is very, very critical in all the mining operations. The financial impact, the digital transformation definitely talks to that pillar, whether it is reducing, the operational cost, looking at the operating profits, looking at new revenue streams, and basically the better returns to the shareholder. And very importantly, I think, the private network being an enabler or connectivity being an enabler becomes quite critical to the digital transformation in the different mines. And as part of that transformation, I will touch a little bit more on, the possibility of co-creating the solutions in the mining space through the various network, not just the connectivity, but moving up the stack, which at MTN Business is what our ambitions are, looking at the compute, looking at the embedded security, looking at the ROI-based cost-plus model, because end of the day, some of these digital transformations in the mine, we believe, all comes back, the total cost of ownerships and the return that we can share, which effectively a mine manager, needs to take to the board to get the approvals on that. One of the key things that we believe from a smart mining perspective, this slide primarily depicts at the top, as you can see, the different streams or the value chains when we talk about mining, whether we're talking about open pit mining, whether we're talking about underground mining, whether we're talking about greenfields, a lot of companies that are still busy investing in, or existing mines that have got a lot of lifespan of that mine that is there. And the mining can be across the different minerals that we're talking about. about. So whether from a survey and monitoring perspective, planning, operations, safety, and optimizations, which become some of the key pillars, when we look at the value chain. And if we look at some of the use cases that might be related to the smart mining, our view is every mine is in a different maturity state. And what is relevant for kind of one mine in that maturity, in that journey, might be different to another mine. So if you look at a mine that is in greenfields and looking at still exploration, the planning and scheduling becomes a very important element. A mine that is already in existence, and looking at, the safety, the variable for field maintenance and operator safety becomes critical. The 24/7 ongoing, kind of the support of the environment. From a logistic perspective, the fleet management and the health, the collision avoidance and the vehicle interventions, the operator assist. So these are the various use cases that we are seeing from a smart mining perspective to maximize the profit and reduce the risk. And at the bottom, when, as Ryan mentioned, from a connectivity perspective, there are various technologies that can be relevant into the mine. I mean, obviously, as we all know, the mines and the proximity and the connectivity in the as-is environment is very different, and sometimes, it's not that great. So whether from a connectivity perspective, it's the fixed wireless access technologies, whether it is the fiber optics, whether it is the 5G play or the Ethernet everywhere, all of them are relevant for the above use cases. And this is where we are working with different mines across the country, where we are looking at co-creating, where we are looking at doing the proof of concept, as I mentioned earlier, to pick some of the use case, get that value, look at a TCO and ROI-based kind of an engagement. And in that context, we are really working with a lot of partners and the ecosystem player, which I will touch in a minute. So what does then connectivity, when we talk about, we have, the mining world, but what does the digital ecosystem actually mean? So in our view, when we are talking about the different use cases and when we are talking about connectivity, it can be sliced and diced in various ways. Now, in the mining operation, for example, there can be very strong mission-critical controls that might be required, that has got a very different input parameter when it comes to connectivity, where the throughput, the performance, the resilience, it might be very different, whether it is autonomous vehicle, whether it is critical infrastructure and controls, whether it is remote control and process automations, it might have a very, very different requirement from a connectivity perspective. Then you might have some massive Internet of Things, that might be very relevant in some of the mining environments, and within the mining ecosystem, within the mining world, it might be related to communities that it is talking to, the smart home, buildings, the tracking and sensors, the different forms of variables and the different authentication, that has got a very different coverage requirement from a connectivity perspective. Then when you look at the enhanced mobile broadband, or whether you look at the subscriber quality, the resilience that we need in the 9x5 operations, or the speed that we are looking at, the latency that we're looking at, all of them have got a very different kind of a requirement from connectivity perspective. So today we want to dive a little bit more on 5G, and it's not, as I said, the 5G as a technology. At MTN, we believe that everybody deserves the benefits of a modern connected life. So what does that mean? As MTN, we continue to invest in the country. If you look at the different technologies from 2G, 3G, 4G, the fixed LTE that is already there, across the different provinces, I think there is a lot to leverage. And obviously, as we roll out 5G, there can be a massive potential that from a private network perspective, from a hybrid network perspective, that the mines can tap in. But this will not be all true if we are not working collectively. I think that's a key thing that we're looking at. When we are co-creating, we are working with various OEMs, The OEMs can be very niche. When you're talking about operational technology, obviously the likes of Siemens, Schneider, ABB, these are massive OEMs there. If you're talking about from an IoT perspective, there are various OEMs that we're working with, whether it's the likes of Huawei, whether it's likes of Cisco, whether it's likes of Ericsson, whether it's likes of Nokia. So all of this OEM play, and then the system integrators become also very, very critical in that equation. At MTN Business, there are a lot of skills from a system integrator that we are building on the back of center of excellence, but we continue to partner with the different system integrators that are already entrenched in the mine, so that as a collective, together with the mines, we can create the digital ecosystem. We can identify the right use cases that we can bring to bear. So when it comes to private wireless ecosystem, as I mentioned, the different technologies from a connectivity perspective. So on the left hand, as you can see, there are various different technologies that can be relevant. It can be the enhanced mobile broadband. It can be the fixed wireless access technology. Just to kind of share with you, we are very proud that, from a fixed wireless access perspective, MTN has got the Tarana technology, which we believe, is kind of really niche in the market that we are kind of rolling out, So how can the mines get access to it? The 5G that we will talk about it. As I said, the massive scale communications or ultra reliable low latency services becomes very key. And that's where it gets, kind of birth to the whole network private slicing that can be possible. When we look at the application layer in the mines, what we are seeing as part of the IoT, it's not just about the connectivity, but it's about the devices, the compute, the edge computing that we're talking about, and very importantly, the application. It all needs to start with the problem that we are solving in a mine, but the various technologies on the left-hand side actually then talk to the different use cases, whether it is the virtual reality and augmented reality, whether it is the video or the ultra high definition, kind of content that might be required. As I mentioned, when we talk about the mines, we're seeing more and more. It's not just the mine itself, but the ecosystem of the mine, the villages around it, the consumers, the settlement, and how does the fixed wireless access for the smart home automation kind of become very relevant. And obviously, the variables, the social networking, the whole smart building and smart cities in a way becomes quite relevant in that whole thing. And from a ultra reliable low latency services perspective, the vehicle to vehicle, the whole automation process that we are talking about, the public safety, etc., are all the different use cases that can be then underpinned by the private wireless ecosystem that we're looking at. From a technology perspective, as I said, we are invested massively in the 5G core architecture. We are looking at a very, very fast rollout of the 5G. So from a public perspective, there might be certain relevance that the mines can tap into. Otherwise, the architecture can move into more of a hybrid or a private environment. So this is where I think we're trying to bring the private network architecture to bring it all together. As I mentioned earlier, it's not just the 5G. There's a lot of relevance. I mean, the 4G and the 5G coexistence becomes very, very real. When we talk about connectivity, the whole Wi-Fi and the Wi-Fi 6, also we are seeing a lot of use cases that augments the different technology. And then there is that private network, for the different use cases that we're looking at, the public network that we are looking at. And that then underpins with, all the different use cases. I'm very proud to share with you that, all of this that we're talking about is just not a theory, it's reality. We are busy with the POCs with the likes of, Royal Bafokeng Mine, in Northwest. We are looking at working with the likes of Zhijing Mine, which is in the exploration phase, with Pilanjaba Mine. There is a lot of work, and we are currently looking at the POC. And most of these POCs, we are defining what the success criteria looks like together with the business, together with the mine, and very quickly taking an agile approach. We are also adopting a concept of fail fast, because some of these things might look very good. And once the POC is successful, then we are engaging into more of the future that we are talking about. So with what I have shared today, I hope it gives enough context for the rest of the discussions to follow through. As Ryan alluded, there are some great sessions that are here. But from an MTN business perspective, we are really proud to participate, to learn from each other. And if you need more details, as I said, not just from a connectivity perspective, but IoT overall, security, the compute side of things, we would really love to engage with all of you to see what we can co-create in this world of Internet of Things. With that, I hope you have a great conference, a great webinar. Enjoy the rest of the session. Thank you very much.
And Sudipta, thank you so very much for that. A fairly in-depth but overall view of what we're trying to do with it, what this requires, and how we go about the process. Now, the concept of IoT as a machine-to-machine communication platform or idea has been in existence for decades, but only fairly recently have we started coining the term IoT, probably over the last decade or so. And as such, the machine-to-machine industry has started being formalized. And as part of that formalizing, in South Africa in 2019, the IoT Industry Council was formed to represent the industry or represent the interests of the technology industry in designing, building, and deploying solutions based on the Internet of Things technologies. The current outgoing chairperson of the IoT Industry Council is Spad Dlamini, also an executive of Kaizen IoT. He's now going to give us a presentation on the role of digitization in the mining industry and how IoT is disrupting and improving mining operations and profits. So now, over to you, Spa.
Good morning, and thank you for the warm introduction. My name is Spamandla Dlamini. I represent the IoT Council of South Africa, and this is a very onerous moment to be part of this space, and an exciting time for the mining industry. As we know, we've been looking at the transition of the mining sector, particularly observing how it's been moving from the traditional its era to a much more converged space, and with the help of our industry players, we've seen radical improvements in the digitization of the mining sector. As introduced, my name is Pa Dlamini, chairman, and we've been in the business of helping the IoT industry for now 3 years, and our role has been largely to be the voice of the industry participants, to drive growth in the industry, and to assist in the reporting and creating visibility through our activity in various sectors. It's also to connect end users with suppliers and driving localization of investment into the Internet of Things, and then to provide regulatory oversight and just to help the ecosystem with harmonization and providing support. Right. So coming to what we have seen in the industry, specifically from a mining perspective, right? So when you're looking at the Internet of Things, we are primarily concerned about how do you get to a granular level of data. So what we see as a status quo is quantification, and this is where the Internet of Things and everything it's in the stack is talking to, all right? So the Internet of Things is in effect the foundation, right? Because it unlocks the radical improvement in safety, in particularly mining. And how do we talk about that? We're talking about connected devices. We're talking about creating visibility, both above ground on surface and underground, irrespective of those operations. We're also looking at how IoT is unlocking efficiency in those operations, right? We're also thinking that with that baseline of now having basic visibility through those sensors and connected devices, you're gonna start seeing dynamic asset and productivity management being enabled and being unlocked, you know. And then quite critical, and it's something that's been quite growing in the global sphere, is the role of environmental, social, and governance, and in the reporting and in the attractiveness of the mining sector. So the adoption of ESG and the reporting, you know, whether it's voluntary or if it's from a compliance perspective, but we are seeing a stronger requirement and an ability for IoT to come in and play a major role in enabling the reporting. And then lastly, because of the traditional nature and the disparities of the value chain in the mining sector, because of it being disconnected, IoT is now becoming a very strong contender in augmenting the value chain from pit to port, meaning that customers are now having the ability to see production data up to logistics and up to where it gets and reaches the customer exchange points. So the Internet of Things is really becoming a strong influencer in how companies are starting to view their operations. And this is the key thing here. So just broadly, in South Africa alone, we are transitioning to, I think, an above 30% increase in growth over a period of about 6 years. At this stage, we've analyzed the market to be about 83 million, and we're going to grow to about almost 500 million, and that's a giant step for an industry that's still at a relatively low percentage of adoption, right? And the key factors that are coming into this thing is we are obviously seeing, as a council, an exceptional amount of improvement in the reliability and availability of connectivity infrastructure. And we separate now the two between the Internet of Things and the industrial Internet of Things, because the two do require quite different configurations of connectivity. So it's important for us to, as a council, to look at that, to look at those two worlds, because they enable different capabilities depending on the environment itself, right? So we monitor that, and we see that there's been a significant improvement in the connectivity infrastructure, and there's I think because of the intensity of the global exposure from the mining perspective and the pressing commodity markets, it's interlinked with the drive for autonomy and smarter operations. And what that really means is that things need to change, and it's no longer just about getting production out into the client. It's also about getting into visibility of how each and every aspect of the operation is being done, and what are the avenues that exist to be able to automate those processes within operations. And so we term these smart operations, because I think what's happened is that with just general connectivity being in place, we've got smart operations, but just a nudge ahead of that continuum, we want to call those operations smart operations. And this is also informed by the connected mine terminologies that we've seen coming up. But at the bedrock of this, we need to consider what has been happening in the market. And we've, through our members and customers that have approached us to get assistance in their journeys, we've quantified through various surveys that customers are starting to achieve about 23% cost optimizations through IoT-led solutions. And what does that mean? I think if you're looking at it from a financial perspective, we understand that a lot of solution providers, they talk about 30% and 40%, but when we have done a thorough analysis, we arrived at it looks like it is almost certain that with implementations you can achieve cost optimization of about 23%, and this is based on various applications. As colleague earlier on was alluding to, the proof of concepts has been a significant increase of about 63% in proof of concepts, especially for mining safety management. This is, of course, with different applications of the IoT, the percentage of increase in the POCs would differ, but this is how we've seen the radical improvement in not just looking at production increases, but also the interventions that have gone into the management of safety and the digitization around that. This was also led by the disruption that the pandemic, or the impact that the pandemic had during the past 3 years in the mining sector. So that figure is also just informed by those studies. There's been a significant recovery in production through reduced downtime, through machinery and shutdowns. And the shutdowns normally happen because of latency in the reporting, and we all know how heavily regulated the mining sector is. So the more awareness, the more transparency and visibility there is in operations, obviously then the customers and mining houses and miners are able to reduce that risk, which significantly reduces the propensity at which shutdowns happen. And with sensors, more sensors being attached to machinery, we are able to start measuring the productivity of those machines. And so there's been an 18% production recovery in the mining space overall through what we've seen from the customer base. And we did a survey where we just wanted to understand how important the ESG aspects of things is to in the mining space. And because of the climate change and the COP26 and all the movements that are looking at just working in a better environment and creating better environments for mining and the carbon footprints, there's been a strong belief coming through from mining community that IoT will be the key to improve ESG reporting. And this is basically because of that other first aspect that we mentioned about quantification. So with the Internet of Things, we are able to actually start monitoring these and automating the reporting, which is fairly difficult to do in a paper-based environment. So now, all of this seems great, but we've also encountered challenges, or we've also gotten feedback that there has been challenges in just the pace of the growth of the industry, the growth and penetration of digitization in the mining sector. And the concerns are really, centered around the size of the initial and upfront capital investment when you need to do your initial transformations, which is quite significant. In the mining space, where connectivity is an issue, that infrastructure can be quite a dent on a capex, and it needs to be planned for. And so sometimes, and this is based on interactions with customers, that there's a trade-off that needs to be made in between production and capex investments, into maintenance and the machinery versus that of connectivity. And this is across above surface mining operations but it is more intensified in the underground mining operations, where there's there's a need to start getting there's stronger and more reliable base stations underneath there. Some customers have actually gone into trenching fiber inside their operations, but the concern is that of the capital investment and the size of that, And second to that, which is also quite high on the radar, is the concern about the rate of displacement of labor, because the more you digitize, the perception is that there will be an increase in the displacement of the human capital, and that's something that is closely guarded and carefully managed by both and all the stakeholders in the mining community. So that's something that also is just slowing the rate of adoption. Then there's the perception of the complexity of starting, that we see companies just not really knowing where to start, right? And that does delay the process, and that's also informed by the lack of sponsorship from executive going down to ops, and then the one thing that is becoming a trend has been the lack of localized hardware, and the dependency on the global market obviously does impact the rate of adoption, because of if there's shortages in the global markets, then that in fact impacts the lead times in which solutions are deployed in the local markets, right? And then lastly, it's the major concern around data security and vulnerability that hardware and the various solutions would expose to customers, and some areas that could be improved there would be around the governance and the network, the integrity of the networks that's being sufficiently covered by the different players in the market. So these are some of the factors that have an influence on I think the current growth on a year-to-year is about 38% projected. It would be a lot higher if some of these issues were addressed. And one that we haven't really mentioned here, which is also quite strong in the cards, is that of skills, the availability of skills and support in the transition of the mining sector. So to kind of wrap this up, to answer just a number of issues in terms of the complexity, right, and the ease of just the adoption, because the benefits are there, right? The benefits are there, as mentioned earlier on, with the cost efficiencies, which directly affects profitability of the mines, and so the question is, what are the compelling use cases that we've seen from an industry perspective, And are there any low-hanging fruits? Yes. It's if we look at energy efficiency, that's very high on the radar, given the energy crisis just locally in South Africa, and with the geopolitical effects. Yes, energy efficiency is one of the low hanging fruits. Waste and environmental monitoring. On the topic of ESG, there's a lot of industry concerns around just how the contamination in the different processes and how it's monitored. So waste management and environmental monitoring are very strong cases that would help with the balancing of the triple bottom line for the mining sector. Equipment and asset monitoring, very, very, very key in terms of just to get visibility in those spaces. Miners stand a chance to benefit, and once you get that visibility, you can start tapping into recovery of production through maintenance, preemptive and predictive. And one thing that is quite underlooked is the time that it takes to perform reporting and analytics in the space. Just simple acts of just going paperless are a gateway to just massive amounts of time reduction, and this is hourly rates per employee, and that efficiency does have a lot of improvement in creating visibility operationally across the company's value chain. And then lastly, we do provide this guidance as an industry council, where we help with matching customers with use cases with some of our members who are in the space, and we've obviously gotten the data that we had to show as to the performance of the market through successful case studies and use cases that our members have put in there, as well as interviews that we've done with mining customers that obviously are wanting to make a change in their operations. So this is the industry view in summary, and thank you for this opportunity, and I hope what we have shared does give you the understanding that the IoT Industry Council is playing a significant role in the growth and in the transitioning of the mining industry. Thank you.
Gold, diamonds, platinum, and so much more. South Africa's mineral wealth is legendary, and our mining industry is a world leader that employs hundreds of thousands of people. But unless the sector keeps innovating and modernizing, there's a very real danger it will be left in the dust, with huge implications for our country. Smart mining is the future, and the foundation of smart mining is connectivity. That's where MTN Business comes in, enabling digital transformation by leveraging the power of 5G. MTN Business is already working with several mining groups to understand how to enhance networks, operations, and security using the best 5G in the country. This will improve functions such as ore screening, mining efficiency, equipment and transmission automation, and underground safety. 5G allows for artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data analytics, and the Internet of Things, all key to smart mining. When it comes to health and safety, for example, with MTN 5G and IoT solutions, smart mines can get real-time view of all their crucial data. Groundwater levels, seismic activity, displacement, temperature, smoke, gas leakages, emissions, and the location of miners and equipment. This data is collected remotely and centrally managed to ensure that operations, maintenance, efficiency, and safety are top of mind. MTN Business is excited to be playing a leading role in this space and has invested billions to create a truly world-class network that can promote the growth and sustainability of its enterprise customers. MTN has the best network for next-generation 5G connectivity, offering cutting-edge, faster, and more seamless connectivity within the mining industry. With smarter apps, improved data storage, faster processing, and wider information distribution, the future has arrived. Only one question remains. Do you have the right connectivity partner in place, or are you going to be left behind? MTN Business. Business done better.
Thank you very much, Spa. And I think they're starting to touch on the value to come from this transformation, the move to IoT, bringing digitalization to mining. And continuing on that theme, we're going to be having a panel discussion now, which is, I think, moving from the high-level theory of digital transformation into what does it actually mean? What is the value of it? And how do we make the change from the high level to the real world? You know, transforming the way decisions are made, getting the skills required, the rules of engagement with workforce and communities, and how resources are optimally utilized. Intelligent mining delivers real value to operations. So this panel is going to explore the radical change digitization can bring, is bringing, and will bring in the future to mines. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm now going to have a conversation with a panel, and I'd like to introduce that panel. So please, let's all welcome in whatever digital virtual way we can to this discussion. And we have on the panel today, firstly, Mr. Johan Bartman, Senior Engineer for Position XT, Kathy Lesso, Chief Information Officer, Department of Mineral Resources, Jean-Jacques Verhagen, Program Manager, Digitalization, IoT, AI, Technology Research, Development and Innovation, Mandela Mining Precinct. And I think that title is a little short. We've got to expand it a little. And then finally, Mr. Anton Tolete, Director, Digital Twin. So to the panel, good morning, and thank you all very much for being here. And I think to get things kicked off and started, I'm going to do a whip around the panel, and we'll start in the order that I introduced you. So starting with you, Johan, I think just a quick introduction on the topic of this panel is intelligent mining, delivering real value. And so from your perspective, what does that mean? And, you know, we're looking at bridging the gap between this idea of transformation into real value. So what is intelligent mining, and how do we start to move toward delivering real value? How does it do that? Starting with you, Johan.
To tie specifically in with the topic, we are addressing the problem of hot hole and reactive ground at this point in time. And the whole issue is to make mining, open cast mining in this scenario where you have hot holes in mining coal and reactive ground in other mining areas, to make that safer for the operators. So what we do is we place sensors in drilled holes to monitor the temperatures in the hole. We generate alarming from for unsafe conditions, and in that way work at generating a safer mining environment for the scenario.
All right, Johan, thank you very much. And I think, when we talk about value, safety in mining, of course, is the ongoing priority, and you've touched on that. So now moving over to you, Kathy. What is intelligent mining, and how does it and will it deliver real value? You've got a minute. Give us all of that.
Just so that I don't assume the regulating
No.
us, our interest, and the my stakeholders' interest. So, as a regulator for us is, as you've said, safety with no revenue without compromising safety and sustainable mining. So, with technology being available, it helps, it makes it easy for us to regulate, and it makes it easy for our stakeholders to comply. So basically, zero harm. Give me an example, production stats. If we have to get a correct accountability of production stats, a human body must drive at some point to actually check if the dump actually equals to the amount that's been declared. But with the technology that's been here, you can estimate, you can get a drone going there checking and actually leverage, and you do spot on checks to see that the production stats are as per declared by the industry, which then translate to the revenue that government needs to actually build on the economy, because those are declarations that goes to SARS as income, and we use them for whatever social needs for the country. Secondly is the safety. We have to check on the safety of the equipment and all of that. Because of the time lapse, you might find at the time a body has been there, the equipment was checked and okay for safety. But the lapse of inspection versus that, you find that it wasn't on point. That's where accident happens. So we are saying with technology, those kind of things become immediately recordable or corrected, because we're not here to be the policeman for the industry. We want to work together. So by us picking up things that needs to be corrected, it's not policing, it's more proactively saying, let's do things right and have a sustainable mining environment. And then over and above that, it would be decision making. We policymakers, and we are saying with technology, digitalization, 5IR, whatever we call it, decision making is informed and it's proactive. We don't have to wait for 1,000 people to die for us to change mine health and safety laws. That actually happens by the intelligence and the mining of the data that we get from the operations from our partners. So just basically, I think the key for us is we want to do this together with the industry. We can't do it on our own. We want to partner.
All right, Kathy, thank you very much for that. I think we lost a bit of sound from you toward the end, but I am going to be coming back to you shortly in a little while about the role of government. But I'm going to move now to Jean-Jacques, and you are sort of on the ground. You do a lot of things in the Mandela Mining Precinct, so I'm keen to hear your thoughts on intelligent mining and how we're delivering real value in your experience with it.
So, the future, and if we look in the and the evolution of mining into the 4IR space, 4IR needs mining and mining needs 4IR, and that's our catchphrase. If we think in terms of the materials that are extracted from the earth in order to make all these intelligent devices that we gather data with and that we do the processing. But on a mining value chain perspective, we expect various factors to improve, and those would include the traditional ones that we always talk about in mining: cost, managing costs, the efficiencies, profitability. But there are some others being highlighted at the moment, especially when we combine digital transformation with ESG. Then we suddenly think of factors like resilience, flexibility, transparency. And it also gives the value lies in that leadership of the whole mining ecosystem can contribute to the sustainability agenda on a higher scale and level. There's obviously, I mentioned the ESG factors and the assurance mechanisms that that digitalization and would offer in the mining industry. And very important, especially for the South African context, would be key stakeholder impacts. So how do we work with our communities? How do we engage with our workforce? And how do we empower our workforce with real-time decision-making ability? And then we have the broader partners that our industry has to engage with. And then a final one that I'd probably want to mention is the fact that business sustainability, overall business sustainability for our mining sector and the longevity thereof is a key factor. So the metrics that we are actually exploring at the moment, it's a study that we're currently conducting, where we're trying to put metrics and percentages to what can we get in terms of throughput, efficiency gains, cost reductions, or perhaps they're going to increase. And then a very key one that Kathy mentioned, safety. And there's a number that's been quoted as fresh as this morning of over the next number of years, 70% improvement is expected. So very, very key factors that all contribute towards value in this journey.
Fabulous, Jean-Jacques. Thank you very much for that, and I love your opening perspective there of the of how these two things need each other. And we don't often think when you've used technology for a while, it becomes something that's just there, and we often don't think about where it comes from and what makes it possible. And the fact that a lot of what does make technology possible is what comes out of the ground in terms of the actual hardware to make it happen. All right, and then finally for an opener, coming to you, Anton, and from your perspective, intelligent mining, how is it and how is it going to deliver real value in mining?
Yeah, morning, Ryan. Thank you for this opportunity here, to the whole team as well. That's online. Yeah, I think it's a great question, and for us, it's really about shifting to all things connected. So, what does that mean? And the various speakers today have spoken about the underlying infrastructure for connectivity. And for us, the meaning around that is the link back to the classic old M, the man, machine, and method. And getting that to a connected space, I think, is really the critical side of it. We at Digital Twin, we've had, let's call it, some good opportunity across different industry verticals. Within mining, of course, manufacturing, property spaces, and the likes. And I think the uniqueness around mining is quite an interesting challenge when you think about connectivity. From a mining space, the consideration of two fundamental factors that you're operating mostly somewhat, deeply underground, in some instances up to 4 kilometers underground. That's the one real piece of uniqueness, which is very different to, let's call it, a static Volkswagen manufacturing facility by way of example, So you've got this complexity of operating underground, and then the other major complexity is the fact that you've got moving infrastructure. The fact that you are developing within a mine and moving in an ongoing fashion makes this whole connected space a real challenge. And I think the big breakthroughs that are happening, I think this is more, fourth industrial revolution is more of an evolution than something completely new. But the breakthroughs, I think, in terms of cost, speed, reliability, and security around information are the real underlying elements that are starting to really come to play and get most mining houses really involved and intimately working with the space. And I think as the other speakers alluded, I think there's, within mining a big financial and non-financial objective that is to be had here. And I think our jobs is to almost demystify this overall digital transformation word and make it practical and tangible to the mining industry.
Thank you very much for that, Anton. And I'm going to stay with you for another question. But just a reminder that those of you watching online, use the chat facility to submit any questions you would like addressed to the panel. We do already have a couple of questions, and we are going to get to those. So I just want to let... I just wanted to see. So we got a question from Luzuko and from David and from Neil. So I'm going to get to your questions in a moment. But staying with you, Anton, I mean, you spoke about making this a reality. Transformation does imply that things are going to be one way today and a completely different way tomorrow. And it isn't. We have to balance. There is time in transformation, although it can't take too long. So we've got transformation, we got evolution, but how do we get started in business? How do we start going from planning to execution and get going?
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. I think the big element is to start somewhere, is to make a start. And I think sometimes we use the concept of trying to boil the ocean. Sometimes I think organizations try to start too big and too fast. And I think, what you really need to do as an organization is to try and find a practical next step, because that first step will get you certainly to the next step, and find something practical that you can implement and start the change management process. So we believe that this needs to be driven from the top, from the mining leadership. Mining leadership needs to be bought in. They've got to have a vision. And then you've got to find that first practical next step that you can really start taking it to. So, if you think about maturity from a digital transformation perspective, typically your starting point is to get access to data in a real or near real-time fashion that you otherwise would not have had, and find a space in your process that is really practical. Whether you want to start on the let's go back to man, machine, and method. Whether you want to start by tracking machinery and getting that data live. There's a whole bunch of challenges just to unlock that point by itself. Start there, and then establish what value, financial and non-financial, you can get by getting that level of data, and it leads you certainly to the next step.
All right. Well, so a start. Well, you spoke about boiling the ocean. I guess with that, how do you eat an elephant? You start slowly. You do it one step at a time. All right, I'm going to go to audience questions that have come in from our online audience watching. And the first question is from Luzuko. And I'm going to address this question, I think, to you, Johan. And then if there's anybody else who feels like they would answer it, please raise your hand if you have anything to add. But the question is this: how prevalent do cybersecurity breaches occur in the mining IoTs, given that there is a heavy dependence on third-party technology? Johan, fairly randomly, I'm coming to you.
Okay, I think cybersecurity in the mining industry is the same as everywhere else. As long as something is unknown, you can hide behind obscurity. But the moment that you become known, there will be attacks. So you have to address cybersecurity in your implementations right from the start. In our own case, we are quite heavily focused on developing fit-for-purpose equipment. So we are not at this point that heavily reliant on third-party equipment like routers and so on. There's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek in all of this, in that we started out with our implementation for the hot hole monitoring with a radio-based local area network and so forth, and then we ran into the complication that there is a DMR directive out that you cannot use radio equipment on blasting phases. So we had to pivot completely and go to a non-connected implementation at this point in time, until we can address the use of radios on the blast bench. So a somewhat limited in scope IoT application at this point in time for us, where we are protected by, in fact, not using off-bench communications.
All right, and then coming to you, I think, Jean-Jacques, your thoughts on the cybersecurity question and experience with it.
So it's. I think we all accept the fact that it's prolific at the moment. What we have found is many of our systems in our mines are legacy systems, and it's frightening to consider the amount of vulnerabilities the older equipment has, and the operating systems, the firmware, the kernel that they run on. And so we made it our mission this year to engage and create a security maturity model, specifically profiling mining environments. So there's one for manufacturing, for retail, etc., energy industry, but specifically for mining, which will be useful to assess where we're at as an industry in terms of cybersecurity maturity. But yeah, we also consider other aspects to it. It's not just about the devices and the systems that run on these devices. It's actually also about data trustworthiness. And we know that many of the issues that we have, cyber threats and vulnerabilities, happen because of people. It's data that leaks and flows out and is shared. So automatically we now need to consider data governance practices and frameworks. So it's a holistic approach that's required, and there are various components to it. And so we're making it our mission this year, and we've started that work to assess where we're at and how can we improve it.
All right, thank you for that. And then changing tack slightly, Kathy, I'd like to come to you now and ask you the question: what is the role of government in this conversation? You coming from a government perspective, you mentioned in your opening statement you don't want to be the policeman for the industry, the thing about working together, but how do you see the role of government in helping this process of transformation in an industry that is so vitally important to our country?
Thank you. So the role of government is to create an enabling environment. So, for instance, starting with policies. So the one leg can say, I want to go to Cape Town, and the other leg want to pull to Cape Town. The policies need to be in sync, consulted, and make sense for the industry to go. So that's the enabling environment that we need to create. Secondly is the issue of within the policy is the issue of human capital. I think we'll all agree we are a country that is a labor union heavily, and labor relations come into play. And until we demystify the fact that people are not losing jobs by virtue of transformation, we're always going to have feedbacks from the unions and all of that. So part of the triple M, I used to call it triple P because I'm a bit old. So people, technology, and process. So we need to make sure those are intact so that as we plan, we build. Johan has spoken about governance and people, and Jean has spoken about also governance, and Johan is talking about security isn't unique to mining. It's also not unique to the regulator itself, the cybersecurity. So we are saying, let's not leave the element, the person, the people element behind while we do this transformation to make the journey easier. Because if you get the buy-in from the people, training, showing them what is it, what the benefit would be to them when we transform, makes it easy for us to implement technology. I always say technology is the easiest leg in the transformation. The people are the hardest. So it's for us, government, to make sure that together we come up with policies that enable you guys to do all these things so that we all can grow this country. So that's in the nutshell what the role of government is, and make it easy. So when we say the industry needs to comply, we shouldn't be making like it's a pain where you're going through layers of things to do before you actually comply. We need to make it easier for the industry so that they want to comply. They don't do it grudgingly. So those are the initiatives that comes with an enabled environment for transformation to actually happen. Thanks.
Great, Kathy. Thank you for that. And then a question from David, and I'm not sure who to address this to. So as I ask the question, raise your hand if you want to answer, but I'm thinking Jean-Jacques or perhaps Johan, I'm not sure. But the question is, many underground mines struggle with connectivity. Obviously they do. The rocks get in the way of messages. So what developments in terms of hardware dealing with the connectivity issues underground? Who wants to take that on? I see, Jean-Jacques, you're nodding there, so I'll start with you.
So when the Mandela Mining Precinct initiated its work 5 years ago, that was the very first problem statement that the industry threw at us, and was how to install and obtain real-time data from stope to surface. We started work on it. We looked at various technologies and protocols, and we decided as a program to look at some military-grade type of communication systems, and tested it, proved the concept works 100%. But what is encouraging is that it was actually a catalyst where mining companies and other partners in the industry took up the challenge as well. And so in parallel, there's been such immense progress since then that we have so many options. In my view, it's not just one solution that will fix this. Yes, we have to take into account we have older conventional mines with legacy systems that we now need to connect to let's say Wi-Fi 5, 6, or other protocols. But there's so much work that's been done, and there are solutions that are readily available at the moment that have proven to be of value. I do not see that as so much as a technology problem anymore. It's now about driving cost. It's about driving things like standards, security, localization, and being very clear as to what value does that system and how much bandwidth do we need? Are we going to run autonomous machines? Do we need video? Or is it a small packets of data that's required to be transmitted? It needs to fit the environment and that mine with all its particular nuances. And that's where we're at now in figuring that kind of matrix out. Yeah.
John, thank you very much. And then Anton, coming to you with a question from, I think it's from David, where he asks, what is I beg your pardon, it's from Neil, this question. What is your experience of readiness of mines to this type of innovation transformation?
Sure. So that's a real mixed bag question. Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, David. I think the maturity is different across the different channels. We've had the fortune of being involved with the Mandela Mining Precinct that JJ has been talking about here. And through the exposure to, let's call it, more of the major players, but then also some of the mid-tier and junior players, we see a varying readiness for adoption. Some of the major houses are already quite mature in that they've established, let's call it, the Wi-Fi interface and various different sort of enabling infrastructures that is really the groundworks of taking it to the next level. And then, focusing on driverless machinery and all these sorts of great things that can be enabled through this technology, I think is maturing well. But I think when you take a step back and you compare, let's call it, South African mining to a global mining sector, I think, in general, I guess, is to say that the opportunity is there for us. We've got such bright minds in this country that, need to come together and really figure out new and innovative ways. We have to maintain our leading status as innovators in this space if we're going to remain relevant in the long term. I think we all know that the commodity space is a global space. We've seen what's happened on the back of Ukraine and how things shift around globally, relatively easily. And I think for South Africa, we really need to make sure we move up that maturity curve and maintain our leading status from an innovation perspective. So Ryan, sorry man, that's a bit of an all-over answer to a rather complicated question.
and it always is complicated, and it is tough because some are more ready than others. But it is a case of there is no option. We have to go this way. And you know, new solutions bring new problems. We know that. So there will absolutely be new problems to solve, but they have to be solved. It's the cost of being alive and being in business. We have 3 minutes of this panel left, and I want a closing statement. So that works out to about 40 seconds each. Starting at the top, I think with you, Johan, your parting message about intelligent mining and what people should take from this. And go.
I really think the most important message I can bring today is that technology can become an end in itself. Technology needs to solve problems on the ground. So my suggestion would be that if you have an offering that you want to bring into this space, you should get your feet on the ground as soon as possible.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Succinctly and importantly stated. Kathy, over to you. Your 40-second parting message.
My 40-second parting message is we don't have a choice. We have to transform. So biting it bit by bit, the long-hanging fruits will actually help us solve those future problems that may come with the bigger transformation. So it's a must-have. It's not like we have a choice anymore to transform things.
The elephant needs to be consumed, so take the first bite and get going. And then Jean-Jacques, your 40-second closing.
Yeah, it will be addressed specifically to leaders. And my encouragement to leaders in the space, whether it's senior management or mid-tier, is be prepared to have your mindsets challenged. This is not a one-size-fits-all technology solution-driven environment we find ourselves in. This is going to take different kind of leadership than what you may be used to or what you've been exposed to. So it's just encouragement to think again, be curious, learn as much as you can, and also develop the ability to look at it holistically. It's an integrated system and solution. So that's my message.
Excellent. Learn, relearn, unlearn, question everything, and then finally you, Anton, your closing, your parting message.
I think simply the business case is a no-brainer. Our work in this space has shown that your investment in is far less than your reward out. Go for it. Hit it. It's. I'll give you the quick example in the 40 seconds. If you've got a 300 million rand a month mine and you can save 1% on grade, you've got 35 million rand per year to work with. We as technologists can do a lot with 35 million, I promise you.
Well, I could certainly do a lot with 35 million, so excellent argument. All right, I'd like to thank our panel very much for your valuable insights. So Johan Bartman, Kathy Lesso, Jean-Jacques Verhagen, and Anton Tolata, thank you so very much for being with us this morning. And we go from that panel discussion, bringing real value, delivering real value. Now we're going to look at a customer case study, a review of the benefits that IoT has brought to African Rainbow Minerals Limited, learnings from South Africa's first mine to use the latest technologies to deploy a digital twin management system, generating insights and reports to improve decision-making, safety, cost efficiencies, and increase productivity. So to present this is Executive Technology Operations Lead for African Rainbow Minerals, Mr. Victor Tobachale. Over to you, Victor.
Thank you very much, Ryan, for that introduction, and good morning to everyone. I am pleased to be part of this visual presentation, and today I will be taking you through the benefits that IoT has brought to my organization's African Rainbow Minerals. With that being said, I am just going to quickly show you some of the stats that are emerging. If we just take a little bit of a journey from around 2020, most organizations had by that time had already invested in some form of digital technologies, and those included things like your cloud, cybersecurity, also some introduction into data analytics. In around 2022, it was predicted that 92% of executives believed their business models would need to adapt to respond to digital. And in fact, we are now slowly seeing that emerging. And in terms of what the future looks like, it's predicted that by 2025, cloud native platforms will serve as a foundation for more than 95% of new digital initiatives. So just picture a situation whereby almost 95% of all the technology initiatives in organizations are actually running in the cloud. They are born in the cloud, no infrastructure on premise, etc. So it's quite a shift that we are heading more towards. And then just lastly, the global IoT market was worth around 76 billion US dollars in 2021, and it's expected to grow and surpass the 100 billion mark by the year 2026. Just to give a definition there, IoT, in short, it stands for Industrial IoT. Just to bring some context into my industry where I operate, which is in the mining industry, we do know that the fourth industrial revolution needs mining, given the fact that most of the new technologies run on chips that are made out of minerals being mined underground. But with that being said, South African mining in particular needs the fourth industrial revolution. Some of the stats that have been emerging over the past decade has shown that there has been decrease in productivity. The costs of mining have risen up, and 2/3 of this South African mining output in the upper half of the global cap. So there is definitely a need for technological interventions for us to mine better, to ensure that our revenue rise up, and as well as to align with our global goals around ESG. Gartner has defined what they call it's the IoT prism, where there are some key initiatives that are driving the desire for IoT, especially centered around the key topics, which is the ESG topic. Things like asset tracking and reporting, remote management, ability to manage devices remotely, green transport management. We want to be more efficient around transport management, and there's talks about carbon emissions, etc., which are one of the key things that within the mining industry we are monitoring closely, as well as energy reduction, and lastly, which is one of the most common use cases within the mining and the manufacturing industry, which is the predictive maintenance and operations. From a perspective of health and safety, 25% expected a greater than 30% improvement in their health and safety performance over the next 5 years due to some of these technology changes, including IoT. There is also expectations around improved throughput. Operating cost is one of the key drivers that drive us towards looking for better technology to help us manage costs, and then as well as efficiencies. Just coming into some of the use cases within the mining industry, we typically see the predictive maintenance. Predictive maintenance simply means the use of wireless devices or sensors, to predict and alert workers, for example, when a machine needs a particular maintenance. So if you can just picture some of the heavy machinery that are sitting within the mining industry, we don't necessarily have visibility of when certain components are going to break, but by installing sensors within the machinery, then we are able to monitor its performance over time, be able to detect as and when wear and tear happens, and be able to map it out and predict when will a particular component require replacement, and therefore plan for it ahead. If necessary, place orders for replacement equipment way ahead, of time, so that when that time for maintenance arrives, then there's minimal downtime. We can easily replace components within our machinery and put our machinery back into production. And you can just imagine from that use case alone how much cost a reduction would be realized by just minimizing downtime and easily and quickly be able to pull machines out into maintenance, quickly maintain them, and put them back onto the production line, almost like a F1 racing, if I can put it that way. And one of the advantages around that is that it's a prevention of costly breakdowns, because now we are actively monitoring all our components. Now we are able to see when breakdowns are about to happen, and we are able to take corrective measures well ahead of time before the breakdown is bigger. And of course, from an industry perspective, some organizations have already recorded worldwide that there's already as much as 25 million a decrease in downtime. One of the other use cases that we have is location tracking. This is where we use things like, for example, GPS systems or RFIDs, better known as radio frequency identification tags, and other technologies that are out there to basically to view where our assets are at any given time. And that is one of the key things within mining industry, as you can understand that, mining operations span quite a large distance, even kilometers, above ground as well as underground. So it's very much important that at any given time we can track our assets, where they are within the plant, what they're doing, and and whether they're being used efficiently. Added to that, it's also the shipment tracking, where our minerals now start moving away from the actual mine itself, and be able to track the minerals all the way up until they reach the intended customer. And we can be able to see that in real time and be able to either avoid or deal with certain events that happen. For example, when there's wars and there's ships that are being hijacked, etc. One of the things that we are planning around basically the location tracking is in the improvement and the increase of our coverage in our mining operations of our network. From a 5G perspective, we are currently piloting 5G in one of our mining operations, as well as rolling out underground Wi-Fi for our underground mines, to enable the seamless connectivity across basically everywhere where we basically mine. Another use case that we have within the mining space is remote quality monitoring. This is where now we use sensors to monitor the quality of resources. For example, it's not only the resources that we mine underground, for example, the quality of platinum or the quality of gold, but it expands as far as the water quality in the tailings dams, and ensuring that there's environmental health safety. If you can imagine that some of the water that gets used within the mining environment, they contain chemicals that can potentially be harmful towards the environment. So with the use of things like chemical detectors and gas detectors within and around the tailing dams, we can be able to predict if then the water poses a danger to the environment and take corrective measures, in real time, as opposed to taking corrective measures retrospectively. Energy optimization, I think this one is one of the most commonly talked about. Everybody is talking about, how do we optimize on energy? How do we make sure that we don't use as much electricity as necessarily required? We do know that our country is one of those countries where things like energy and water are pretty much scarce, so we have to be really smart about how we consume our energy. For example, through the use of sensors even underground, we can detect when certain machineries are not being used, either be able to remotely shut them down so that we consume less electricity, as well as the heating, the ventilation, and the condition and the air conditioning that is present underground. Through the use of cameras and motion detectors, etc., we are then able to see areas where there is less mining activity happening, and therefore we can start shutting down things like your heating and the ventilation and the air conditionings within those areas, and that's contributing towards overall reducing energy. Just as an example, this is one of the solutions we have deployed in one of our mining operations. This is a belt monitoring video analytics solution, where we've got AI cameras that can detect anomalies on the conveyor belt. So if you can imagine that a conveyor belt, a lot of minerals and raw material gets placed on top of a conveyor belt and it moves. Sometimes it's not the you get to detect things that are not even supposed to be on the conveyor belt, and they can potentially damage the conveyor belt. And therefore, through the use of such cameras, we are able to see and pick up anomalies, as well as the thermal functionality on the camera itself allow us to basically see when there's overheating occurring on the conveyor belt, and thus raising an alarm of a potential fire. And then we can take real-time decisions to either stop the conveyor belt in itself and remove all the anomalies, or we stop it to basically cool it down before it can commence again. And then just lastly, the camera is also capable of detecting humans, especially if humans are in areas where they are not supposed to be. One of the key things within mining it's the prevention of injury and fatalities. So with use of such technology, we are able to take steps to ensure that there's minimal to no injuries happening within our operations, as well as fatalities, by just simply being able to pick up when humans are in areas where they are not supposed to be in, or they are deemed dangerous, and therefore we can stop the machinery and then alert them to clear the area before we continue operations. This is a high-level view of the complete camera solution. We literally have cameras just about at every point of our operations, actively monitoring, actively interacting with one another, and we're pulling all of this data into a single view where decisions can be made, and going as well as going into the analytics module where we can predict certain events before they even occur. And this is just a zoom into just one of the solutions that we have. There are multiple other solutions that we are rolling out at mining operations, just specifically around IoT, and just to help the mine operate more efficiently and take smart decisions. And then just lastly, this is one of the typical views of the dashboard view, where we are able to see things like availability indicators, the ability to see the percentage of our machinery that needs maintenance, and be able to schedule maintenance and track the cost per ton, which is a very key metric for us to track and report back to the executive stakeholders, and not just publish it retrospectively through tracking of the cost per ton as and when events occur underground. Also, we are able to see the risk and map out the risk of our assets that we are tracking underground, the number of assets that are showing signs of being high risk, meaning that they can potentially break down at any given time. And through that visibility, then we are able to immediately take decisions and decide on what to do with those machineries, whether we take them out of production for temporarily and fix whatever it is that needs to be fixed, and then continue with operations. And then just on the bottom right hand corner here, we'll have a heat map of our top 5 breakdowns, where we're starting to see the trends. What are the typical breakdowns that we experience, maybe over a period of a week or in a month, and therefore we'll we will be able to predict what will happen in the following month as well. That in short, these are some of the initiatives that we have implemented at African Rainbow Minerals within our mining space, and that are helping us with smart decision making. With that being said, thank you.
Victor Tobakali, thank you very much for that. And there you have it, some real world application of this technology, of this move to IoT, this transformation. And then our final speaker is coming up now, and we're going to be talking about IoT, the mining imperative of the future. Mining in the not too distant future is not going to look all of that different. Or it's not going to look all that different from something out of iRobot or Battlestar Galactica. Emerging digital technologies such as AI, IoT, and new biological technologies promise to revolutionize the industry in almost unimaginable ways. So now we're going to hear on that topic from the head of business development, Braven Solutions, Mr. David Pereira.
Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone has had a fantastic start to the day and they've learned a lot about what's possible with IoT. My name is David Pereira, and I head up business development for Braven Solutions. Braven Solutions, at a very high level, we are technology enablers. We're not mining experts, but we are experts in what technology can introduce into the mining sector. So what is the future of automation? What is the future of mining? The future of mining is automation. It's been quite obvious if you read any of the papers that are around that automating all the operations in the mine is imperative. However, IoT is going to be the core of it. IoT is going to be the enabler. IoT is going to be the communication medium that enables this automation to occur. So when we're talking about the future, I like talking about future technologies. And these 5 sectors that I'm going to be covering today in my presentation are the ones that I feel are going to be the most impacted by the use of IoT. The first that you can see over here is your digital twin. So for those that don't understand what a digital twin is simply a replica of what is happening in your operational environment. So from what I've seen at the moment, a lot of the digital twins that are available are shown using lines and graphs. However, and in the not so distant future, and there are a few current use cases of how you can turn that information or that digital twin into a real life simulation using both virtual reality technology as well as augmented reality technology. The other big use case around digital twins is leveraging machine learning and artificial intelligence to ask, what if? I'm going to run through a quick video now of a virtual reality simulation in a mine. And the way that IoT can enable this is that if you've got the correct information available, you can stream that information directly to your virtual reality environment so that everything that you're viewing here is live. And if that virtual reality environment has been built correctly, you can start doing predictions. You can start testing the boundaries. You can start having multiple people work together. I think that everyone, especially in the mining format, has seen the use of virtual reality from a training perspective. However, the next logical step to utilizing virtual reality in the mining environment is to ask what if simulations and see visually how that would impact the business. The next type of visualization is the use of augmented reality. So augmented reality is visualizing a 3D medium through some form of digital means, be it a tablet, phone, or conversely, you could make use of a Microsoft HoloLens. This video that I'm about to show you now is what is possible with the use of a of IoT, and what's possible of creating this live digital twin. So as you can see in this environment, the lady's busy looking at a mine, and everything that is happening in that mine is live. It's real time. And you can just imagine how helpful that will be from an operational center to see what exactly is going on in the mine live. And if your IoT sensors and your communication network is up and running, you are able to communicate with the individuals in the mine the whole way through. The last use case for how IoT can assist in creating this digital twin is starting to leverage AI and machine learning. IoT essentially is just giving you and enabling you to have the data available in order to ask these what if questions. So you can start testing out, what if this happens? How will this affect my operational productivity without actually directly affecting the environment itself? You can start understanding what are the impact of changes to my environment in the South African context and actually in the global context. What is the impact that a strike could have to my environment, not just operationally, but financially, as well as resource planning? How is that going to affect me? How is it going to affect my suppliers? How is it going to affect my vendors? And all this is only possible through the use of IoT. If you've got that core data available, I get asked a lot of questions about how artificial intelligence can help me, but the only way that AI, and even for that fact, ML, machine learning, can help you is if you've got that core data. And that's why IoT is imperative. It gives you that core data that you can leverage. The next topic that I'm going to discuss, which talks a lot about the use of IoT, is remote operations, which enable automation in the mine. Now, I'm going to show you a video of what's already going on, and I'm sure, again, everyone has seen what is available by operators working remotely. However, in the future, and it reminds me of a video that I saw that PwC released around the future of mining in 2040, they said that people are going to be all over the world busy operating mines. However, that's already happening right now, especially in the Australian context. This video is from Australia. It just shows an operator operating a piece of machinery without actually being there. So I'm just going to let the video play out a little bit for all those that haven't seen it. But it becomes very interesting as to what is possible with this, with remote operations. I know remote working is a big thing nowadays. However, it is starting to become more and more applicable in physical working environments. I'm not too sure why the chair is there, but in the future that won't be there. It will just be cameras. And again, how you can see, you can sense how important IoT sensors and monitors are to being able to perform this operation correctly. So why is the remote operations becoming so imperative? First is the reduction in occupational health and safety. You're removing people from being in these dangerous environments, therefore reducing the occupational health and safety risks that come up when people are in that environment. It allows people to work in harsher environments. I know that in the gold and platinum industry, the guys are trying to go deeper and deeper and deeper, and those are inhospitable. People cannot operate in those environments. And even now, for all of those that have been underground, I'd argue that it's not very hospitable already. So the use of machinery becomes more and more important. The use of machinery that is automated, that can work there without human beings being present, is possible. However, again, the only reason that is possible is if your sensors and monitors are working correctly. The next part of that is increasing your efficiency and increasing your accuracy. What IoT allows you to do is allows everything, all your hardware, it allows everything to talk to everything else. And if everything is connected correctly, you can ensure that everything is done to the best accuracy possible. And that is only enabled through the use of IoT. The third one that I'm going to be talking about is a big one. It's one that is quite mature in the mining environment, is the use of sensors and monitors to monitor what is going on from an environmental impact point of view. So these 5 points that you can see over there are probably already being used in your respective mining environments. However, what What can be done when you integrate IoT into machine learning engines is that you can start predicting what will happen in the future if you carry on that way. You can start utilizing real-time data together with machine learning engines to start building predictable models that can be submitted to relevant parties that are interested. The most interesting use case that I've seen with the use of sensors as well as a machine learning algorithm is around scoping out new sites. Using drones to map out a site, receive that information, and start predicting what the impact of that type of mining will have on that area in 5, 10, 15, and 20 years' time. It's a very interesting use case, and it's becoming more and more important, especially with the importance put on ESG investments. A lot of the investment that is coming from international waters is requiring some form of look at the environmental impact that investment would have. And that is where IoT becomes imperative for that reporting. The next part that I'm going to be looking at, which is the one that I've got the most experience with, is from a health and safety perspective. Obviously, the training, as I go back to virtual reality, how IoT can help you from a training perspective to get that live data so that people are getting trained on what's the most recent things that are happening underground or above ground. The first thing from a health and safety point of view is environmental monitoring. Again, this is quite mature in the mining environment. You've got in the coal mining dust monitoring, you've got methane monitoring, you've got airflow monitoring, temperature monitoring, fire hydrant monitoring, making sure that that fire hydrant is working so that when a dangerous situation happens or a fire occurs, you can guarantee that that fire extinguisher is actually going to work. So having that real-time monitoring over there, monitoring humidity, monitoring your light network. The last thing over here is the smart cameras. I saw that in a previous slide, the use of smart cameras to sense the temperature of certain components. However, smart cameras can be used even further. You can teach the smart cameras together with computer vision to actually start identifying whatever you want them to identify. Again, the most interesting use case in that environment is using smart cameras to identify whether people are wearing their PPE correctly. It can start identifying whether the people are wearing their helmets correctly, whether they are actually wearing all the PPE required for that specific environment. And if not, creating an alarm, creating an alert to the relevant individuals that, listen, that person needs to stop because they're not wearing the correct PPE. The next part on the health and safety side is worker monitoring. So now I've got a very rudimentary picture here. And again, this is currently getting used in more mature environments. However, you can start seeing how you can better monitor your employees wherever they might be in the mine, and you can start equipping them with all these sensors and monitors so you can actually understand in real time how that individual is doing. So besides making sure that their light is working, you can start monitoring their fatigue. You can start monitoring where they are. Where are they relevant to other dangerous obstacles in the environment? Where are they relevant to other equipment in that environment? The heart rate monitor. Is their heart rate at a sustainable level? You even get temperature sensors on the individuals to make sure that they're not exposed to high temperatures, that they're actually okay, that you're not going to have something that's going to happen. And again, you start leveraging machine learning. You can start building predictable models using your data to see what would happen if that person gets exposed in this environment for too long. One of the more recent use cases around the use of IoT in this environment is PPE monitoring. Again, you can use your smart cameras, but you can also make sure that every single PPE piece of clothing or helmet or whatever it might be has a specific sensor that you communicate that tells you that this individual is properly prepared for the environment that they're going in. The next video that I'm going to show you is what's possible in terms of employee monitoring. So again, this use case has been deployed in international waters. However, it becomes quite imperative when you're wanting to know where your people are at all times. So I'm just going to let the video play out. But what is possible over here is you're starting to build that real-time visibility of where people are in your environment, where are your machines in your environment, and how are they moving in that environment. And again, if you've got a properly built machine learning engine on top of that, it can start telling you where your risks are lying. If things carry on this way, what is going to happen in the future? The other things that become quite interesting with it is, besides the location monitoring, is you can start seeing where people are. Is that person allowed to be where they are in that specific part of the mine? Are they entering into dangerous territories? You can start triggering certain alerts and alarms to make sure that you are in the know at all times. The last part that I'm going to be covering is the use of mixed reality with IoT sensors. So this picture that you see over here is already being deployed in certain environments, more in clean environments. However, it is possible in the mining environment as well, with the headsets being intrinsically safe. However, what you're seeing over here is someone wearing a Microsoft HoloLens and having a live operational view of what their machinery is doing. So what this essentially means is that the IoT sensors are integrated into his headset. So when he looks at any machinery, it will tell you live what is going on with that machinery. So I want to paint a picture for you. Imagine that you are walking around in your mine, and as you look at any piece of machinery, it starts popping up with very imperative statistical data that tells you how that machinery is busy doing, what speed is it working at, being able to interact with it so that you can see start asking those what if questions. The last thing that I'd like to cover today is just how IoT is going to be used throughout the whole supply chain in the mining environment. So from exploration and prospecting, the use of drones, the use of essentially, again, IoT, sensors and monitors, to take that information back to a machine learning algorithm so that you can see what is going to be the impact of that mine in that environment. Is it going to be profitable if I take everything into account? From a mine site design and planning, again, being able to build, and this is more again from an artificial intelligence and machine learning perspective, will this mine work the way that we want to by taking in all the data that all these sensors and monitors have given us? Through the construction phase, again, that visibility of being able to see how people are busy building it. What is the impact of what I'm doing on site to the environment? Production, again, we've covered that in quite a lot of detail. And lastly, from closure and reclamation, being able to put down sensors and monitors to see what, once that land has started to be rehabilitated, how is it affecting? Have we done it correctly? And so on and so forth. That's the end of my slide. Short, sweet, and to the point. I thank you again for MTN for reaching out to me. And thank you everyone for your time today.
And there you have it. That's our MTN business. Look at the mining sector, IoT, 5G, the move to digital transformation within the mining sector. This has been the second of our webinars looking at specific industries. We've covered agri, we've now covered mining, and in our next one, we're going to be covering smart cities, which I think will be a fascinating view of where the future can go with technology. Think about our smartphones, our smart homes, and extrapolating that out into cities. So that's what we're looking forward to in the future. And remember, transformation has been with us pretty much since the start of this century. Our lives have been constantly transformed. Things we thought we would never do, we started doing. The move in the early days from traditional mail and moving away from the fax machine to email, then social media. In our personal and our professional lives, we've seen and been part of transformation. And it is and has been coming to every industry. So the message from today is this is here to remain relevant, to remain productive and profitable. We all have to be making this move. So get started today. We've had a number of questions come in throughout the morning. for our speakers, for some of the questions to our panelists we couldn't get to. All those questions will be addressed and emailed out. So we thank you for your comments and your questions, and we will make sure we get to it. But there we have it. Thank you once again to all of our speakers and to our panelists and everyone getting involved. We hope it has been useful and productive. We'll see you again for our Smart Cities presentations, but that wraps it up for this morning. Thank you very much. Go well.